My brothers are in here listening to my speech. My room is just a mess, and they insisted. Actually, they forced me to not show it. So I've got my timer here. Three, two. So in all of our history courses, in all of our classes, we've heard of all the history people, the Romans, the Greeks. We've heard of the Caesars. We've heard of all those people. But I have always been most intrigued with first century Jesus. See, I thought about talking about Jesus' historical existence, but with the mountain of scholarship and evidence for him being a person in history, it's overwhelming, and it felt like a waste of time. So, what I am proposing today is that Jesus died and was resurrected, and I want to present 5 historical facts to back this from the first century that is generally and widely agreed on by almost all scholars and historians. I will then show the 8 explanations for these facts and how only one of them rationally satisfies all 5 facts. So, Dr. Gary Habermas is a scholar, and he gives us 12 historical facts that are accepted by historians and scholars, Christian and non-Christian. From benmin.org, it gives an overview of Dr. Habermas' study. He surveyed New Testament scholars. They were theologians, historians, and philosophers. They varied from conservative to progressives, and he reviewed critical scholarly writings over the past several decades. Here's from Habermas himself in his dissertation in college at Liberty University. My bibliography is presently at about 3,400 sources and still counting, published originally in French, German, or English. Today, I'm going to give you 5, which are the 12, but as many people have reduced them to 5, grouped them together to make them smaller. So what are they? 1, Jesus died by crucifixion. 2, women found his empty tomb. 3, independent appearances of Jesus alive after death. 4, violence endured by the apostles. And 5, enemies of Christ are converted. These are not controversial facts. If you got together a room of historians, they would all agree upon these 5. Some evidence, I'll go ahead and present right off the top, is from the first century itself. It supports our first one, which is from, most notably, Tacitus. This is what he says in his book Annals, written AD 116, in book 15, chapter 44. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Additionally, from aledia.org, it quotes Lawrence Mykuick, associate professor of library of science and his history librarian at Purdue University, how Tacitus was Rome's best historian ever in Rome's entire history, and it puts to rest the claims that Tacitus, talking about Jesus dying on the cross and a mysterious resurrection almost happening, is very true and is very credible. I also want to present evidence for fact 5, enemies converting, in fact 2, independent appearances, in fact 3, violence endured by the apostles. Paul is most famous of this, as we find in his letters. He had it all. He was a Pharisee of the Jews, and he was persecuting Christians and being commanded to chase them down and arrest them and having them killed. But he heard Jesus' audible voice, became a Christian, and began to preach the gospel through all kinds of troubles and persecutions, through shipwrecks, through beatings, through floggings, through stonings, and we see this from Paul himself in books like Galatians chapter 1 and Corinthians 11. I'm sorry, his letters. Now, there are 8 explanations for this, for all of these for these 5 facts happening, with only one satisfying all of the facts rationally, which is Jesus is alive and did rise. So here are the other 7 explanations and why they don't work. One is the swoon theory, which is Jesus didn't entirely die, which is totally wrong, as the details given in Christ's account of his death are too gruesome. Blood and water flow. That is medical death. We know from the Romans that nobody could survive this crucifixion. Okay. Number 2, the twin theory. There was a twin crucified. Well, which twin would go? Also, this goes along with fact number 5, his enemies converted, as Jesus' brothers were converted after his resurrection. Number 3, the mass hallucination theory. Everyone had a mass hallucinations. Well, mass hallucinations don't happen. No one experiences the same hallucinations. In mass studies, we have found that that is not possible, and it does not happen. It would be a miracle if it did. And if we're appealing to miracles, then why not appeal to the miracle that Jesus rose? Number 4, spiritual resurrection theory. He didn't rise physically, he just rose spiritually. It specifically says he rose physically. There is no place that you can shove in the word spiritually there. And it also goes against the fact too that the women found the empty tomb. So where's the body if it's just his spirit? And how did Jesus eat with the apostles and the disciples if it's just a spiritual resurrection? Number 5, the wrong tomb theory. They went to the wrong tomb. The disciples wouldn't be preaching the message of the resurrection so boldly. It goes along with fact number 4 that they were adhered to violence. They wouldn't be preaching it so boldly against violence if they just went to the wrong tomb and didn't see Jesus afterward, like fact 3 says in the independent appearances of Jesus Christ. Now, number 6 is a lot like number 5. It's the missing body theory. The disciples hid the body. Well, if they hid the body and nobody saw Jesus or heard of Jesus, then enemies of Christ couldn't convert because couldn't find the body. Also, how did the disciples endure such torture if they just hid the body? That leads us into number 7, the conspiracy theory. Maybe they lied about it. Maybe they lied about Jesus rising. Well, what was the purpose? What did they gain? For example, Joseph Smith, who created Mormonism, got 19 wives out of it. Got 19 wives. Christians got persecuted. There was no personal gain. There was no political gain. There was nothing. They were killed. They were hunted. They were arrested. They were dragged down into the streets for preaching. They were burned on pikes. Just look at Paul, for example. They didn't get anything out of creating this. So that cannot be possible. So as we can see, there's no other rational explanation for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So, what does this all mean? How do we approach this? My challenge to you today is to go home and study these 5 facts and see for yourself if those explanations hold up or not. I'm not proselytizing. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not telling you to believe what I believe. I'm not telling you to convert to a religion. All I'm asking is if we use the same criticism, historical and scholarship, for other people in documents and history, and think we have a good account of what happened to them and how they lived and how their governments focused and died, then why is it so different for Jesus? That's another speech for another day with many deeper issues. But that's not what I'm asking. All I'm asking today is for you to take this evidence and research it for yourself. Because it seems to me, with the evidence that we have, that I've presented today, Jesus was crucified. Women found the empty tomb. There are independent appearances of Jesus. His apostles endured violence. And finally, that his enemies converted to him. That there is without a doubt no rational explanation for what happened here. There's only one, and that is that Jesus is alive and resurrected from the dead. Thank you.